Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well. I'm going to sneak a little bonus upload in today. Before we get into it, though, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. The merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters of Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative and exciting uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go, and they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into today's bonus, shall we? Today's first part of the upload. I personally do not believe in werewolves, and I'm highly confident that this was not that. When I was about 13 years old, my brother, 15 at the time, and his best friend R and I were hanging out at R's house, which was on the adjacent corner to our house. We hung out until nightfall. Around 11 p.m., my brother and I decided it was time to go home. R decided he would walk with us. We crossed the street and reached the alley, which split the block right in the middle. We looked right and we looked left before crossing because cars or people would come out of them. When we looked left, back to R's block alley, I heard, "What the hell is that?" coming from R. I knew then we were all seeing the same thing. At the end of the alley stood a black, almost smoke-like, but rigid figure that was about 3 or 4 times bigger than the average dog. The only solid part of the figure was the bright red eyes. It stood there not moving, but in an intimidating stance. We all got creeped out and walked faster. My house being a house away, we all got inside the gate as fast as we could. In the time it took us to turn around to close the latch on the gate, we noticed the dog figure across the street, in between the cars, like it was following us. We all ran to the porch where the light was on, and in a blink of an eye the figure was in front of our house, hiding behind another car. We stood there horrified. Our fence was small enough for it to jump as it stood 3 feet tall. Several minutes had gone by when R's porch light turned on. His mom stood at the door, which meant it was time for him to go home. We all looked back where the figure stood, but it appeared it was gone. We all stepped outside together. We looked around for signs of this dog. Nothing. R ran home, and we all were puzzled by what we saw, but never spoke to anyone about it because we knew no one would believe us. Over the years, while we would have get-togethers or parties, our friends and family would go to the alley to urinate or to smoke break and would come back freaked and described a ghostly dog figure with red eyes. As an adult, I'd chuckle and say, "I know what you're talking about. I've seen it too. But I don't know what it is." They would look at me like I was teasing them, not knowing I've seen it twice. Once that night with my brother, and again as I walked home from the bus stop from my night class in college years later. I went to visit my parents this weekend, and my boyfriend brought up the time he saw it come out of the alley about the same time last year. Well, we were waiting for me one night. I never told him about it. The way he described it was exactly how I saw it. A wolf-like dog with weird fur, kind of like an anime drawing, bulky, built like a weight-trained pit bull. He said it was the size that frightened him, as he didn't see the eyes. It's not always there, but when it is, it's always a fright to remember, even 13 years later. Today's second part of the upload. I'm sorry for my English. It's not my native language and I'm trembling a little right now. From when I was little, I started to see what seems like a white creature with yellow eyes. I could see this thing when I was at my grandma's house in my city when it was night and I was taking a walk or even in my corridor at home for a few seconds with the corner of my eyes. This thing was tall and always smiling. It appears even in my sleep paralysis, nightmares, lucid dreams, and even what I call peaceful dreams. When I was little, I was staying at my grandma's house every summer, and at the age of 4 or 5, I started seeing things. But not something wow, just little shaped glowing, and then they randomly disappear. And I could hear voices, like they were in the place with echo. I didn't give them too much attention, but then it appeared and it freaked me out. It was night. I knew it was past 100 hours, and I was at my grandma's room watching TV with her because I didn't have a TV in my room. There were 3 houses in the same yard, all ours. The fridge was in another house, so I went to grab an ice cream, but I froze just before I entered the house because I heard something breathe. My dogs were not there. They were with my other grandma, my mom's mother. I started crying instantly and looked to the right side to see what it was. It was just staring at me with a big smile, showing its teeth, those yellow eyes. It was much taller than I. It didn't harm me. After a few seconds, it just started to walk in the backyard, and I couldn't see it anymore because it was so dark. I forgot about the ice cream and ran inside the house. I've told my parents, but they don't believe me. I told my grandma that night as well, and she just stared at me in shock and told me to go to sleep. After this encounter, I started seeing him, but in real life, not for so many times as I see him in my dreams. If someone can tell me what this thing is, or if someone encountered it as well, please help me. Anything you know, because it's getting on my nerves. Then, here are the growls. Where my grandma lives, there are rumors about ghosts, a witch, and something like a big black dog. I mentioned nobody will go out of their house after 100 because of these rumors. At the age of 13, I was at my grandma's house with my cousin playing Don't Get Angry, Brother. And he said the brilliant idea to go out on the empty street just because he was ready to show me the rumors were fake. Like a stupid kid I went out with him and took a walk. We were on the street for a while. But we were also tired, so we decided to go back, and he was just laughing at me because I was so scared. Those obviously fake rumors who are meant to keep us inside and be good kids. On our way back, we saw the dog. My cousin thought it was a wolf, but I started shaking because I sensed something bad, and I was thinking wolves go in packs, right? That's what my teacher told us, so why was this one alone? We froze when it turned at us. It was just so big, and its eyes were black. We stood there for a few minutes, but they seemed like hours. It was just staring at us, and we were staring back. And I was ready to run if he would move toward us. Then it just vanished. It didn't walk in another direction, did not run, just vanished while it stared at us. But not like it was getting invisible, just darker, like it was fading and we couldn't see it anymore. We got back to my grandma's and we told him. Then she told us a story about my grandpa. He encountered the dog as well. But he was in his car, and the dog just appeared out of nowhere and started running after him. But my grandma told us He said the dog was running awkwardly, like a kind of human, but yes, he had 4 legs. My grandpa was near the house, the dog just vanished. My problem here is after I saw it, I started hearing random growls when there were no dogs near me, even in my house or at my boyfriend's house. I hear them 2 or 3 times a year, and if my boyfriend is around, he hears them as well. Those growls sound like a pack of big dogs who are growling at the same time, but they sound so intense. I'm writing this out because I really want some help or information. And just before I got to write, I heard a growl in my apartment. My parents are asleep, and they didn't hear them, I think. But I did. I'm freaked out. I'm staying with my lights on in my room, and I close the door which leads to the balcony. Today's third part of the upload. When I was little, I had an imaginary friend, a huge dog, in the size of a mini elephant. I saw this thing only from a distance, and I just kind of thought of it as my imagination. I saw the thing before anything bad happened. In the winter of 2017, I went to the town I grew up in, only 8 minutes away from where I live now, and went to the tiny mountain to walk around and feel nostalgic. It got dark, and I saw this thing 15 feet away from me. I did, in fact, take a pic, but nothing came out. Then I ran home. I called my dad and told him what I had seen, asking if he knew of an animal like that. Nothing came of it. He was at my girlfriend's place and planned to drive home the next day, and I told him I had a really bad feeling about that. I remembered that nothing good had ever happened after I saw the thing, and that scared me. My dad came home the next day, pale and stressed. He told us that his girlfriend had begged him to not drive because she was scared, and managed to keep him busy for 10 more minutes before he left. He got in a traffic jam because of an accident happened 10 minutes in front of him, and the victims died. He, his girlfriend, and I are sure that he would have gotten in the accident if his girlfriend hadn't kept him home. I told this story to my boyfriend the other day on the phone, and he said it sounded a bit like The Hound of Baskerville, but that's just a Sherlock Holmes story. Today's fourth part of the upload. So this happened one night at around 1 in the morning. I was finishing up my homework when I started hearing something like a puppy howling. At first I thought it was one of my neighbors, may have gotten a new puppy, and it was just crying. 10 minutes passed by with the non-stop howls when I started hearing them right outside of my window. Bear in mind that I live on a 3rd floor and my room is right next to the balcony. I freaked out for a couple of seconds, but my rational mind thought that a puppy might have escaped its house, and it was lost, and that was the reason for it crying. I peeked through the curtains to see what kind of dog it was. There was no dog at all. In fact, there was nothing at all. I got worried, thinking that the damn dog might have fallen and killed itself. I got out of my room, and before I opened the door to the balcony, I heard a thick and heavy growling, like the ones you hear in horror movies. But it felt extremely real and natural. My whole body froze. I couldn't move out of fear. I heard the growling about 6 more times before I ran back to my room. I was scared as fuck. I have never in my 20 years of life ever heard anything like it. I decided to record it, but I can't find my friggin' phone. And then I heard the most terrifying scream, like an animal being tortured. I could describe it as a mixture between a wolf and a bear. I peeked through the window once again, and every single one of the houses had their lights on. I saw my neighbors looking through the windows, and I heard lots of dogs barking at the same time. The whole neighborhood was disturbed by this. My downstairs neighbors called me asking if I heard anything. They were also terrified and scared. They called the police to see if there was anything they could do, but they only said it might have been a coyote or a wolf. I know how a coyote and a wolf sound, and they definitely do not sound like a friggin' hellhound. I'm scared, unable to sleep. I just would like to know what in the actual fuck happened, and if anyone has an idea of what it could have been. Today's fifth part of the upload. A couple nights ago, my best friend came over. Yeah, we broke quarantine. There's two of us, and neither of us go outside. It was all very safe pandemic-wise. So anyway, we got locked out. I went to see if my landlord was home upstairs while Bestie was down on the sidewalk. My landlord's door is up 8 or so steps, and there's a little path through the front yard or around to my door in the back. So I'm at the top of these stairs. I knocked and got no reply. I turned to go back down the stairs, but all of a sudden, there was this hot air rushing past my face and a vicious, throaty growl at the bottom of the stairs. I just kind of stood there. I couldn't process what I was hearing, given what I was seeing, which was nothing. It was dark out, but the yard was well lit from the motion-sensing lights. At the bottom of the stairs, there was a path about 3 feet of the yard, and then a hedge, and there was just nothing. I feel like I stood there blinking for a while. It must have been at least a minute because the lights turned off. I took another step down, and again, snarling, hot breeze, this deep throaty bark, short and sharp. Again I froze. This time my friend saw me stop. He asked if I was coming. I called him that I didn't think I could, that there was an animal at the bottom of the stairs. He came up the stairs and was maybe 3 steps down the path when I saw the thing that really made me feel crazy in all of this. I saw the grass depress as though the creature, the one I still couldn't see, had turned its stance to face my friend. It paused there for a split second, then the grass rose again, and I saw another spot depress, and the hedges part around nothing. There was nothing there. We looked. No raccoon, no possum, no next-door neighbor's pug, not that that could have made the growling noise. I've tried not thinking about it, imagining it was a hallucination, but it couldn't have been. I've had hallucinations before, and they were nothing like this. Does anyone have any ideas of what it could have been? At this point, I just need an explanation, no matter how far-fetched. Today's final part of the upload. My best friend and I took turns sleeping at each other's house. He lived in this small town, about 1,500 people. It was about 2 miles long, 1.5 miles wide. We always slept in his tree house. That way, once his parents went to sleep, we could just sneak out and go roaming the town. We did stupid stuff, like one Halloween, we rolled the police station. The building. We took a case of toilet paper and wrapped the entire building, including the door. The whole building was 15 feet wide and 30 feet long, so it wasn't that hard. Except I felt sorry for the cop working inside at the time, when the other cop on duty showed up. Anyway, that wasn't the night I'm talking about. The night in question, we had probably 4 miles from his house on the far side of town. It was around 3 a.m. when there was a wreck or a shooting or something. The one town cop on duty showed up, and there were about 5 or 6 county deputies showing up, plus an ambulance. So we decided it was time to go home. We walked just a little ways, then decided that if we cut through the cemetery, we could cut the time almost in half. So we started across the cemetery. Just before the halfway point, we started hearing this growling. I recognized that growling, but that's another story for another day. The farther we went, the louder it got. Then we could hear it coming from 2 different directions. We could hear twigs snapping the whole time, but we never could see anything. Finally, after about 100 feet, we both stopped and looked at each other. Then we both slowly turned and looked behind us. Floating in the mid-air were 2 red eyes. There was no body visible, just 2 large red eyes. I knew immediately that it was a hellhound. Don't ask me how, I just knew. During the whole encounter, they floated between 3 to 5 feet off the ground, but no time during the encounter did we see a body. Whatever it was standing there, just growling at us. We stared at those eyes as they bobbed. If it had a visible body, we would have seen the whole body flinch. We turned and ran. Didn't have to tell each other to run, we just both ran. Right after we started running, I turned and looked, and now there were 2 sets of eyes following us. We were running as fast as we could. If you looked at how the eyes were bounding, you could tell these things had some extremely long legs. We ran close to 150 yards. Those things were just about to catch us. They should have caught right up behind us. We finally made it to this 4-foot-high stone wall surrounding the cemetery. We managed to just jump over it, and the exhaustion kicked in as we went across the wall. So we stood there, bent over, trying to catch our breath. We watched the first one come flying across the wall. That is the only time we saw a body, only because it crossed the center line of the wall. The body started glowing. Imagine something that looks like a pit bull crossed with a Rottweiler with a stance of, I think, an English bulldog. It would make it 1.5 St. Bernard or bigger. The skin looked like black leather, but really couldn't tell since it was on fire inside out. Right as it hit the ground, it exploded. Needless to say, the second one stopped inside the cemetery, making this sound that was the cross between a growl and a bark. There was something about the confines of the cemetery that allowed it to exist, but it couldn't exist outside of the cemetery. We walked home in silence. As we went to bed, we kind of discussed the events for about 5 minutes and never talked about it again. Most people don't believe me, but I know the truth, and I don't care what other people think. Alright folks, just thought I'd slip a bonus upload in on today's day to help your day go a little smoother and a little quicker until tonight's live stream. Guys, your support is truly what makes this channel special, and honestly what makes this channel continue to grow and go, and it is truly appreciated. Guys, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on your children, your pets, your family, and friends. These creatures are real, and we know they are out there. Share just a brief, the smallest amount of information with those folks that you care about and love, that we share here on a daily basis. That little bit of information, just so they have it, may save their life someday. God bless you all.